Hello everyone, just wanted to get here, and today we're going to be doing another more advanced dive into LDPM and LDPS. This one is going to focus mainly on LDPM, and we're going to be looking at things like the Aggressive Bid Cascade, the Aggressive Ask Cascade, and what they mean, how to identify them, and so that when you see them in the wild as you're using LDPM, you can know what to expect, know what to look out for, and more importantly, just have a better understanding of the liquidity conditions that are currently underway. So, this video might be a little bit of a longer one, but I think you'll notice that once we kind of look at one of the Aggressive Bid and Aggressive Ask Cascades, the rest of the videos are just going to be looking at examples, so the early part of the video is where the new information is, and then the later part of the video is more about just practicing with that information and looking at some historical examples. So, long video, but don't feel too pressed if once we figure out what the Aggressive Bid and Aggressive Ask Cascades are, that, maybe the rest of the video is more something to peek at later on. But, like I said, I think I'm going to try to do the... So, let's get started, actually, before I start rambling.
The Aggressive Bid Cascade and the Aggressive Ask Cascade are two patterns with LDPM that tell us that an aggressive bid or an aggressive ask has entered and moved price substantially. The benefit of identifying when price moves substantially without an aggressive ask or with an aggressive ask or bid is quite beneficial because we're going to be able to start anticipating and monitoring that price action to determine if it's something that is going to last or if it really is just a sort of one-off few candles and price will likely revert. So here we actually have on and again, I just went through and kind of tried to find various time frames, various types of equities or symbols that to just kind of drum up some examples. So these are no real particular examples. But here we actually have, what's cool about this view right here is both an aggressive ask cascade and an aggressive bid cascade. So let's get started. The aggressive ask cascade is this guy. And it's called the aggressive, I want to get like a pen, I want a stylist. Aggressive ask cascade, AC for short, versus the aggressive bid cascade, which is AP. Just joking, that's not right. But we do have the two, the aggressive ask and the aggressive bid. And the aggressive ask cascade is characterized by these in unison large, let me go back real quick. One of the things you might notice that is different about this LDPM versus the other videos is that we have all of the LDPMs from the default loadout loaded. So if we go to LDPM, we have 5, 13, 34, 55, 144, 377, and 610 are all populated. I've said before, usually I only do 5, 6, and 7 at 144, 377, 610, just to give it a general overview of what's going on. But these aggressive bid cascades and ask cascades can be very reliably monitored with these more sensitive and lower order LDPMs. And that's what we're going to see right now. So we do see definitely a lot more lines. We see LDPM 1 through 7. The lower order LDPMs, I kind of just put in this faint color. Hopefully you can still see it. If not, let me know. I won't do it again in the future. But I don't know. I like that contrast between the three that I consider like the organics, the core, the 5, 6, 7, and then the other ones are a bit more light, airy. They're more reactive, so they're a little bit more transparent. But we see that here we have this massive spike-like activity. And what's interesting is we see that it occurred on all of the LDPMs in sequence. So this massive movement of LDPM upwards is the start of an aggressive ask cascade, and we can see it pretty nicely here actually. So on this candle, we see that all of these LDPMs immediately flipped up. And there are several ways to conceptualize that, or, usually LDPM moving away from price is not ideal. Usually it's, in this case, for instance, it's making that bullish crossover, this attempt that's been occurring along LDPM L5, even more of a challenge because LDPM is moving away from spot. So the gist is that when we see all of the LDPMs in sync move up away from spot, that is the sign that an aggressive ask cascade is entering. Now, the aggressive ask cascade is called that because it is predominantly produced when a force in the market steps in and very heavily starts hitting the sell button. And the outlook is usually downside, so as we see, right? And there's another, so we can see this was like a two-stepper, so stepped in again, and this was the big aggressive ask. And we can see LDPS is even acknowledging that this is someone walking in and moving directly down to the organic bid, that lowest level of support within like the book. And we see that the liquidity is also flowing to the bid. So that means the bid is now becoming the liquidity provider. So this tells us that there is a high demand to sell. So much so that the ask is moving down to the bid, and in such numbers that it's actually the bid that is now setting the rate of transaction, right? The bid has that liquidity. So it's up to the bid to be able to transact and keep the market moving. If the bid doesn't want to transact, then ask will simply have to flow to where that bid is, and hope that they transact there, So we have this aggressive ask cascade. We have all of these LDPMs shoot up, and then now we start the second half of the process. So we identify in the first part the introduction of this aggressive ask. And now we monitor for what is very clickily known as the scoop. And what I would like you to do, here, let's remove the drawing, and let's move this to like 3, and just, let's watch like the lower order LDPMs. Right, so we only got 2 here, but did you notice it? Did you see it? We'll see more examples of it. But notice the lowest order LDPM, which was the highest, has moved down, and it kind of scooped. And then the second LDPM L2 moved down, and then it scooped. The lower order LDPMs are free to do as well, and scoop, right? And so this is called, they didn't know, they just kind of stayed there, but this is called the scoop. So all of the LDPMs that have shot up at the same time now sequentially start moving down and moving under the price. And the idea is, as long as this is not broken, the scoop, which follows that introduction of the aggressive ask, indicates that the support has been found. So there's a resurgence of bid that's acknowledging that this is a nice low price. They come in, and we get this nice scoop-like behavior. And we're going to see in some later examples, there are certain things to look out for to start to gauge if the scoop is going to be a successful scoop, so the price does get scooped a little nice and back up and to where it should be, or if the scoop is simply a band-aid on a longer term initiation of downside. Here though, we see that the scoop occurred, price leveled out, bullish liquidity returned, and things became well. All is well in the world. Now let's watch it go. And then we have, so that is in a sense this is a nice little aggressive ask cascade, and this is a nice little introduction to the scoop, right? The opposite can occur, the exact opposite, which is the aggressive bid cascade. And then it's also like a scoop, but to me it kind of looks like a nice wave, so I just call it the wave pattern. But we see if we move back to here, so we're going along, we're bearish, we're on that support, and then bam. So we get this nice big candle, but also notice the candle doesn't actually have to be, the candle wick, or the candle length actually is irrelevant. It's all about the how the LDPMs are doing. In this case, we do get this substantial, everything is now moving down. So as before in that aggressive ask cascade where we looked at everything moving up, now we have everything moving down, all these LDPMs. The lowest order LDPM moving quite substantially down. And this is the aggressive bid cascade. And so when we see the introduction of an aggressive bid cascade, we know that most likely the price is going to go up. And then we just monitor for that, the wave, to understand what is occurring in terms of profit taking and if the price appreciation is going to be sustained, because sometimes it's not. So we have this aggressive bid cascade, we have bullish liquidity, we are going to go to the next resistance, but it is part of that aggressive bid cascade. And then we have the scoop. So we can see here the scoop was pretty effective at keeping the price submerged. But notice that we get that nice, it goes down, it goes up, and then it levels out. It goes down, it goes up, and then it levels out. And now, as opposed to before where the scoop was acting as this support that is scooping underneath the price, this is now resistances that are quickly rising above spot. So whereas this indicates dip buyers, this indicates profit taking. People who are, saw this nice big price appreciation and, just want to, act on that. So in general, those are the aggressive bid cascades and the aggressive ask cascades. And they are characterized by the synchronous movement either up or down of LDPM. And then the resulting price action can be monitored with the presence of the scoop or the presence of the wave. Pretty good, right? And this was Bitcoin on the 45. So let's go and look at another example. This example is, a pretty famous example, and I hope you can see it right away. It is GME on the daily on Friday, 2024, 5/10. Was that May? So, and we can see here the introduction of that aggressive bid, right? We see all of the LDPMs moving directly down in unison. And then we see this is a little bit of a broken scoop, but we can see we now have these LDPMs coming and resting above spot. So it's kind of like, it literally looks as if you plunged a rock in a puddle and everything goes down and then splashes up and then cascades back down. And as with our understanding of LDPM currently, we know we should be a little bit more comfortable or familiar with the idea that when we get these LDPMs above spot, even though these are the more like profit taking and more sensitive LDPMs, so they're a little bit more reactionary, they still behave just as the LDPMs that we are used to so far. So for when those LDPMs rise above spot and then start crashing down, we see here they start providing almost like a layer of resistance, right? And these are just people looking to, sell a little bit of an aggressive ask, as the name implies, and try to profit take, right? And it has that effect of suppressing the price while that's occurring. So this is another instance to look out for, and this is definitely one of the perks. When I think in another video I mentioned that I know quite a few people and traders who keep the lower order LDPMs on, and these are the patterns that they really enjoy finding. These really nice aggressive bid cascades and aggressive ask cascades. And in the previous video, I did mention that you can see them when they're significant with only the 5, 6, and 7 applied, but you kind of lose just kind of a little bit of that granularity with, when is the profit taking actually occurring and when does the scoop start and what's going on. So the lower order LDPMs are definitely a little bit in that they have that advantage where they can show us exactly when that profit taking kicks off and then monitor it as it progresses. So this is a pretty quintessential aggressive bid cascade on the GME on the daily. And I think maybe, what was the other big? So there's another introduction of aggressive bid. We can see this is in 2021. You can see the scoop. There's a little bit of a messy one, and we'll talk in later videos about like what a nice clean. This is actually a double. So we go in, we go up, and then we kind of scoop down. So like I said, this is a little bit of a broken one. We come in, we kind of get another doo-doo-doo, and then we scoop, and then is there another? There is another. No, and then another bid comes in, but nothing else. There's a little bit of something here. What is this guy? And the finding the aggressive bids and asks, zooming out like this is actually pretty helpful a lot, because you get to just see the overall behavior. So this is a really good example of another scoop. So we see everything points up at the same time, and then we come down. I don't know what's all that wiggle about. I don't think it does diagonal lines well. Maybe I'm shaking. And then it does a little scoop. So it literally, like in your head, throw a rock, right? And then it splashes up and then kind of just comes down. But this one's the aggressive ask, so it's not upside down. But there you go. So like I said, the rest of the video is really just going to be looking at some other examples if you'd like to tag along, but this is really the gist of it. And I would recommend, if this is interesting, that you go and look at some charts on your own, and it really can be any time frame at any point, and just start to identify these aggressive bids and these aggressive asks, and then, you know, watch them. Use the replay function and really watch how those scoops and those waves form, because they're actually pretty fun to watch. So that is that. Those are the aggressive bids, the aggressive asks. In a nutshell, I highly recommend going and checking them out on your own. But we're also going to continue a little bit with some examples if you would like to tag along. So here's another example. And this is another, so we see that things are pointing up. So we have that aggressive ask. And then we just see again, as that scoop comes down, and it scoops. And then we have LDPM 4, it looks. Right. And then eventually they join. A little rocky there, but right. So we have this cascading dip, and we can see here on this example, things are what I call well respected. So these lines are not like spot respects them as a support, which is a good sign that the scoop is working. And we can see that the overall expectation, so we get this aggressive ask cascade in, and as long as the scoop is well respected, price should, as the name kind of implies, just scoop. It should be scooped back up to where it was, off to higher pastures, right? It becomes more interesting and more noteworthy when this scoop, especially in the early stages, is not respected well. So those LDPMs that come into scoop find themselves just too inefficient, not robust enough, and spot crashes back through them. Those create broken scoops or broken waves if it's the other way around. And those are pretty indicative that downside is in fact going to continue. So in general, you like to see, you know, if this aggressive ask cascade comes in, there's really two outcomes, right? Like there's either this is going to, you know, push things down. This is the start of a new paradigm, or is going to just push things down as that aggressive ask enters the market, does what it needs to do, but then ultimately the price will recover, right? And option 2 is when we're monitoring for this LDPM scoop to be respected, for when we want it to be, you know, we want those supports to actually start showing signs of supporting spot. If it doesn't, if those lower order LDPMs are just not robust enough to be a spot like support, then, you know, we even see LDPM L5 coming in. And again, yeah, and the scoop and the wave can include all of the LDPMs. Here we're just kind of seeing these profit taking and these dip buying, but there are absolutely scoops and waves that pull all of the LDPMs into it. Actually, now that I mention it, there was a really good example recently that my brain's gonna think about it. Hopefully it remembers before we're done filming. If not, we'll make another video. Look at how that works. So let's go. So this is, again, another scoop. So we have that aggressive ask. The scoop comes in. It's relatively well respected. And then we see the price kind of recovers, right? The aggressive ask gets absorbed. And then we move on with life. Here's another aggressive ask cascade. This is the daily SPX, and we see that the first introduction of an aggressive ask occurred on 2020 March 16th. We see that things asked for a while, so LDPM stayed quite elevated. And then we see the scoop start coming. So it starts with LDPM 1, and then we have 2, and look, and we can see how nicely these are respected as we kind of come down. So, and again, by respected, I mean that once LDPM starts scooping these this price, it we don't see spot moving below, right? Like we don't see spot crashing really through these resistances, which would indicate that the support that's kind of been coming in, those dip buyers may not have enough oomph, or they might not be all that certain in the future, maybe themselves, that they're starting to wax and wane a little bit. And so that would give indications that the ask is still maybe quite present, the bid not as strong as maybe some would like. And so the aggressive ask has more so initiated this chain of reactions that will prompt more downside. And so that's the aggressive bid cascade. And so far, we've only really seen respected aggressive bid cascades. I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for ones that are disrespected. Here is another fantastic example of VIX on the daily. And I actually think that this is recent, so this is current data. And we can see here so there were actually like a double attack. So we have here on April 10th, 2025, the introduction of an aggressive bid. We have again on April 21st, the introduction of an aggressive bid. And again, that's because all of these LDPMs in sync move down. But the difference is that instead of the introduction of another aggressive bid walking in, we see the start of the scoop. And here, like with the, or this is the wave, but like the scoop, we see that LDPM is respected as it scoops, so we don't see any real, the spot isn't trying to test these profit-taking resistances. And as LDPM comes and scoops, it acts as this resistance, this inhibitory profit-taking headwinds that the aggressive bid or whatever's left of it, or any organic bid trying to move up to that level or above, this profit taking here and that we can see in these lower order LDPMs as a part of the scoop is definitely providing headwinds for any real price appreciation. So we can see that there were three aggressive bids that walked in April on VIX, and then the resulting shorting and profit taking, what have you, looks to have been well respected and keeping price pretty sedated. So yeah, I mean, that is the aggressive bid and the aggressive ask cascade. Like I said, it's definitely a little bit more of an advanced feature. It can definitely be something that is more in line for people who are interested maybe in these shorter time frames or these shorter scalpings, but they can also be quite beneficial for just knowing when exactly the bottom is going to be reached. A lot of times, although it's early, it's like if for the traders who enjoy getting in early and then monitoring situations and are okay with stepping out if conditions change, these aggressive ask and aggressive bid cascades often do represent when the peak or the bottom of a given price action is converting, right? Because the idea is that the bottom should be right before that the wave in this, or the scoop in this case, comes in and starts supporting price as things rise up. So effectively, it's a way of knowing and having a bit more comfort in knowing. So maybe we started shorting here because things are bearish, we're testing support, we fall through, and then the idea is, well, when do I exit? If we have just the way that I look at things, it can whereas the chart can be a little bit more simple, it definitely shows us that there is in those generalities that only having these 3 LDPMs provide, you do kind of miss out on a lot of information here, so that if, for instance, you don't want to go long until there's a nice LDPM support, even if LDPS is printing those bullish prints, well, maybe trying to identify if those lower order LDPMs are starting any sort of scoop or wave might be helpful. Because here we see, okay, we have a scoop going. It's been here, it broke a little, but it's been relatively respected. We have another scoop coming, and now LDPM or LDPS has switched to bullish. And so now it's, the more proactive trader might see this as pretty distinct signs to now go long. And that would be well ahead of if we were just looking at those LDPM, higher order LDPMs. And the name of the game really then just becomes it's long until either those supports are tested and start failing, or LDPS starts becoming bearish, or which would be here, or just long and forever, whatever you want to do. But that's the, with that additional data, additional options become available, but also additional considerations start piling up. And so it's sort of just this balance of, what type of trader am I? Am I someone who wants to be very actively engaged with the market? So I am interested in these more minute changes, or am I a trader who wants to kind of really just ride the overall themes of liquidity? And maybe I miss out on some early entrances or exits, but overall, that's fine for me. It's a fine trade-off because I have the additional confidence that when I do enter or exit a trade, that it is quite a definitive moment in time, if that makes sense. It's a definitive kind of like confidence level has been reached. But like I said, this is, these are these things that as you see them more for yourself in the wild, and as you study them more and look for more examples, you're really just going to start seeing that it's a variation on a theme, on a theme, on a theme, and it isn't too difficult once you start seeing it. So here's another little aggressive ask cascade that occurred. This is Bitcoin on the 3-minute, and we can see here that aggressive ask cascade. And again, it's because all of the LDPMs started pointing up at the same time. And again, it really doesn't matter how big the candle is. The candle itself isn't important. It's more about how the liquidity conditions were inside of that candle. And then we see an immediate response. We see LDPM coming down, a little bit of an aggressive bid come in. Actually, yeah, this is like a little bit of a hybrid. So we have this aggressive ask, and then it starts to scoop, but then becomes an aggressive bid. And we can kind of see these aggressive bids walking in, and then we see the start of a mini wave. That's pretty interesting. So it looks like someone stepped in, sold, and then someone immediately stepped in and started buying. And then we had a little bit of profit taking that occurred. Right? And all of this does is just help us understand what is driving this price action, right? The inquisitive mind or the nosy mind might then go and look at, since it's, cryptocurrency, you should be able to look somewhere on the blockchain and maybe look at around who at 121 on the 1st of September, which parties entered into an ask, and, they were very aggressive about it. So, maybe that helps, maybe that's before, maybe you start noticing aggressive bids or aggressive asks start popping up before, hours, days before earnings, right? So now it's like, okay, who's eagerly trying to get out of this position, or maybe even who's eagerly trying to get into a position. And so we see a little bit here too, these aggressive asks coming in. We don't have, so in this instance, it's interesting because this isn't, the nice hallmark aggressive ask that we have looked at, but look, so we see all the LDPMs have pointed up, and now we see the question becomes, okay, so we have an aggressive ask that's just entered, and LDPS is bearish, so when are we actually so we're going to go down, but when is the actual bottom? When is that going to occur? And with these lower order LDPMs, we can see that the kind of scoop is already started. I don't know if I'm going to say we didn't respect the scoop here, because it looks like another ask came in and muddled up. But we do have this aggressive ask, and now we can see this lower order LDPM is coming down. And as soon as that starts, really as soon as it drops below spot, and especially once it starts scooping, that's like I said, a pretty good sign that the price will start to recover. And then the name of the game just becomes, you would ideally like to see LDPS switch bullish, and then you would ideally like to see that those lower order LDPMs are respected by spot as it scoops, and then just should glide the price right up. And so yeah, that is the aggressive bids and the aggressive ask cascades. I look at them. I like looking at them, but I don't look for them always, if that makes sense. They're more of something that I will, if I see something weird happening sort of from this view, if I see all of these start behaving in unison, then I'll start adding those lower order LDPMs to get a better understanding of, okay, are we in one of these cascades? What stage of the cascade are we? And then sort of plan from there. And yeah, I think that's that. I hope that this has been relatively helpful. I hope this adds more information into. So this is actually a good example of here's another good example. So this aggressive bid walks in, starts this aggressive bid cascade. We scoop up and then down, and then notice right here, it definitely becomes disrespected, right? All of the spot just blatantly moves first below and then above this lower order LDPM. So now this scoop doesn't look like it's sufficient enough to, the profit taking isn't sufficient enough to really hamper anything that's happening here. So if we just quickly, this might be a fun one to watch, and then we'll end the video. I might do timestamps on this video. We'll see. Maybe. Don't hold me to it. So we have this, so here we have these LDPMs reaching up with price. So we're already in this like profit taking sort of stage. So we get that aggressive bid that walks in. Oh, this is GME, yeah, on the daily. So we have this aggressive bid walks in, and already we see this lower order LDPM reaching up for price. It's trying to start that scoop. So it goes above price, and now it starts the scoop. It rejects spot. Scoop is scooping. And then it looks like we have an aggressive ask cascade coming in, because we had for a brief moment all of those LDPMs were pointed up. So definitely aggressive profit taking. And we see that now the original first LDPM has been, disrespected, has not been listened to. It wasn't providing enough ask in that profit taking to prevent continued price appreciation. So with that disrespected scoop, we know that most likely the scoop is not going to be effective. We're just going to keep going up. LDPM tries again. That first order LDPM L1, unsuccessful. And then we have the introduction of another aggressive bid cascade. Once again, we see all of the LDPMs are now pointed downwards. We see them reaching up, and now we're up. So now we have to monitor scoop, already disrespected. We're coming down, disrespected, and then another aggressive bid cascade walks in. Right? So we've had these repeating episodes of the profit taking sort of walks in, and then the price meets that resistance, isn't phased by it, and then another aggressive bid cascade starts. Almost immediate profit taking though. We see that LDPM L1 moves very up and then very down. Right? And that's what I mean with these lower order LDPMs. They're very sensitive. They're really monitoring exactly what is entering and exiting the transaction, like that floor, right as it's happening. So again, we have a disrespected scoop. We have some profit-taking LDPMs move up. And now it looks like the scoop is disrespected once again. And then we turn bearish. So now we have flash bearish, the scoop. The LDPM L4 and 3 seem reasonably disrespected, and as soon as I say that, they get disrespected with another aggressive bid cascade. We go up, we go up, we go up. The scoop begins. We're still bullish on that LDPS. We've tried to rise. LDPM has tried to rise. LDPM has tried to rise, or LDPM has risen in its attempts to get above spot once more. And we're trying to scoop. and now we're bearish, so natural inclinations occur. So it looks like this was the final bastion of profit taking that pushed things down. And then we hit that support, we bounce again with a beautiful aggressive bid cascade that walks in. Look at that, that's crazy. So we touch the support, we bounce, and then another aggressive bid cascade walks in. And again, the name of the game is up until we see the scoop start to form, and that's a big scoop. Now we come down, are we going to be respected? It respected it. Now we have that second LDPM come in, immediately disrespect it, and now they are starting to point down again. And so now, so this, are we starting to see the theme, right? Like it's really just this like iterative process. We see something happen, we have expectations, we wait for those expectations, and then we reset our expectations, right? Like it's just a series of expectations. So we have another aggressive bid cascade walks in. We know price is going to go, it's a big aggressive bid cascade. We know price is going to go up until the scoop. And so now we have the scoop. It gets rejected. We have another aggressive bid cascade walks in. We have now a huge, okay, there we go. All right, so now this is, yeah, February 2021. So, and then I actually am going to leave the rest as a reader, as an exercise to the reader. I really think that it's beneficial to go through these on your own, find them, watch them a few times, and then it really starts to become pretty mundane and moot to find these, even when they're, you know, in real time, you know, as we were seeing with this Bitcoin over here. So we're still in the process of scooping. I think I was saying scoop earlier instead of wave, but it is the same, right? Like the wave just kind of looks more like a wave because it's the way that it's, you know. So now we have an aggressive bid walking in, and we'll see. And then we just monitor, right? We just monitor to see. So and that's what, again, I think in the other video I was talking about how LDPM and LDPS are reactionary on what is actually occurring. And that is the benefit of watching it in real time, is we are physically watching these aggressive bids enter and exit. Enter to get transactions, and then they exit. They enter to get transactions, and then they exit. And we can see this with how LDPM is responding to, you know, conditions. You know, the more sort of not violent the entering and exiting of these aggressive bids, the more LDPM responds. And so here we actually have a little bit of a mixed, because the second LDPM that was supposed to come down and scoop has actually stalled above price and is now actually acting as a resistance until yet again another aggressive bid is now walking in. And then they walked out. And so they kind of, you know, they keep popping their head in, they transact, and then they dip, for lack of a better word. And so, yeah, we could just watch here, watch this, see if they're just trying to keep Bitcoin above a certain spot, see if they're trying to inhibit it or something, or, you know, maybe they have a limit order, right? And as the price gets to a certain spot, they sell, and then below, and it deactivates, so on and so forth. So you can derive a lot of, I think, interesting information from this. So, okay, I'm going to end the video here. I think that's long enough. During the week, I'm going to be doing the shorter videos, which just go over the, you know, what's ever been happening throughout the week. If you have a particular equity or interest in mind, let me know. It looks like the scoop is, we're going to see if the scoop is respected or not. But if you don't have any questions, I'm going to end the video now. Yeah, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you for joining. And again, if there's anything that you want to see in the future, or if there's any topics you want me to discuss, let me know. But I've actually been enjoying these videos. I'm slowly starting to get things settled. I think I would like a little bit different of a view. But hopefully the sound is a little better. I'm going to slowly maybe start doing a little bit of editing, but don't hold me to it. And yeah, I hope this has been helpful. If not, let me know in the comments. Be nice about it. Just joking, not to be nice. And yeah, okay. I'll see you guys next time. And have a good one. Bye, guys.